It's not record. Okay, so hello everyone, and thanks for joining us today. My name is David Orrego Carmona, and I teach translation at Warwick University. Today, I'm joined here by two of our students, Carol and Jay. Carol and Jay, would you like to introduce yourselves?
Yeah, so I'm Carol. I study translation here at Warwick. I have just graduated from my BA in modern languages with linguistics with a specialization in Spanish and Italian last year, and now I'm here.
Thank you. Jay?
Hi everyone, I'm Jay and I'm a current student on the Translation and Cultures MA, and I graduated from Warwick 2 years ago, and I did Hispanic Studies with Italian.
Thank you very much for that. So the idea today is to have a conversation about our Masters in Translation and Cultures here at Warwick. And we're going to have an overview of the Masters first, and then we're going to move on to answer a couple of questions about the modules, the classes, the assignments, life on campus. And if you have any questions for us, feel free to use the chat along the way. So before we go to the specific conversation with Jay and Carol, I want to give you this brief overview of the Masters. The MA is designed for students who want to develop their skills in translation and intercultural communication and who are thinking seriously about a career in the language industries or further studies in terms of research. So the key question here is really, do we still need translators? And this question comes very regularly in conversations now, so it's worth tackling it head on. The short answer is yes, but the word translators do is changing radically, and the skills that are valued in the profession are evolving rapidly as well. Our MA is designed precisely to help you navigate this changing landscape and to respond to the needs of the market and to the evolving situation in society. So the key question is, what do translators do then? When people think of translation as a career, they often think of the most visible roles: translators, interpreters, revisers, copy editors, and these are all important and remain relevant. But the range of roles that draw on translation expertise is much broader than people realize from the outside. This is what we do in the program. We try to provide a broad overview of what translators and language professionals do. So this is a fuller picture here as an example. Alongside the core translation and revision roles, there are opportunities in audiovisual translation, such as subtitling, dubbing, or description, or re-speaking. And there's also a whole cluster of roles in the language technology industry: machine translation evaluation, AI prompt engineering, translation technology consulting in languages and services more broadly. There are also roles in project and quality management, multilingual content marketing, linguistic quality assurance, and many others. The point is that postgraduate qualifications in translation open doors across a wide range of professional contexts. You can take a look at the website that we have prepared for you, showcasing careers in translation and cultures, to see what our alumni are doing. They are becoming, or they are working as project managers, in-house translators, subtitlers, officers in international organizations, language teaching professionals, corporate communication specialists, and many other roles that are related to translations, but are not necessarily in the language industries per se. So now let's take a little bit more of an in-depth view into our program. Our MA combines theoretical awareness with practical skills. You will develop the critical and analytical tools to understand translation as a professional and cultural practice, alongside hands-on training that prepares you for work in the international language industry. The program has a strong technological component, including subtitling and machine translation, and our modules are industry informed. You will join a thriving research community and learn from internationally leading scholars, experienced professional translators, and guest representatives from the industry. And the idea is that everyone will give you their view and their take on the industry and will showcase opportunities for you to become a professional in the industry. The program at the moment offers three pathways, and this is a distinctive feature of our MA. It offers these specialized pathways within a single degree. You can specialize in translation and cultures, translation and technologies, or literary translation studies. Each pathway is designed to align with a different set of interests and career aspirations, but all students share a common core and belong to the same program community, giving you both depth and flexibility when it comes to choosing your specialism. So, what do these specialisms actually look like when it comes to content? The Translation and Cultures pathway focuses on critical theory and practice across diverse translation contexts with flexible module selection and multiple career paths. Translation and Technologies gives you hands-on experience with cutting-edge tools, AI, machine translation, audiovisual translation, and professional workflows. And Literary Translation Studies develops your voice as a literary translation scholar, as a literary translator through creative workshops, publishing insights, and an understanding of the international literary market. Our students today will be able to share their experiences, and we will discuss how our learning environments support and challenges them to prepare them for their careers. So we're now gonna hear from them and have a quick chat about what it is like to actually do this study. So let's start with the basic question. What attracted you to this program and why did you decide to come here to do your MA? Should we start with you, Jay?
Yeah, sure. So for me and Carol, obviously we already went to Warwick, so we kind of were familiar with a lot of the teaching staff and the campus in general. But I had a really good experience in my undergraduate, and when I spoke to the staff about carrying on for postgraduate study, they were really supportive and encouraging. So I think for me, I knew I wanted to stay at Warwick if that was possible.
Thanks, Carol.
Yeah, very similar scenario for myself. I also really, appreciated staying in the same environment that I quite enjoyed during my BA. But I also think when I was doing my research in terms of a comparison between the other programs and what's out there available for the masters in translation, I did notice that there is a lot of choice, and there are many programs overlap in terms of mixing translation now with the automation, the AI aspect of it. However, what I liked about the kind of pathways is it really told me that it showed me that I can expect a wide variety of specialists within this course. I seeing that there's a pathway in translation and literature or technologies, it gave me kind of the idea, the impression that I'm going to have access to different scholars on different specialists in the field who can kind of help me with different queries and different assignments in the future as well. So that was a good insight to have.
Perfect. Thank you. And we're very happy that you decided to come to us. So now let's take a look at a typical week. How would you describe a typical week in the MA? What does the workload look like and how do you organize your time? Should we start with you, Carol?
Yeah, so effectively, more or less, there are 4 modules each term. In my first term, I had 4 modules, and that kind of entails 3 to 4 classes each week, and each class is usually 2 hours. So I want to say about 8 contact hours a week in terms of the classes, more or less. That kind of varies on the modules and per term as well, but keeping it on average. And then in addition to that, there's also extra sessions with be it professionals or from the industry, or be it external scholars coming in, and that's every so often throughout the term, on average, let's say 4 to 5 times maybe per term. And so I would say that the contact hours themselves are, of course, not everything that goes into this master's. It is a full-time program, and you very much feel that it isn't a full-time program given the amount of independent work that is required per class. However, I would say it is manageable, despite being quite demanding at times. But that's part of being in a full-time master's program. I think you have to go in with that expectation that this is going to be the case, and it worked for me, and I'm quite happy with it. Yeah.
Thanks for mentioning that, because some students are surprised by the number of hours, so that's useful to have that detail. Jay, anything to add here?
Yeah, so I just want to mention how every time we have a class, there are like pre-session activities and post-session activities. So this helps you like consolidate what you've learned and also prepare for the next class where you'll be discussing, for example, a reading that you did, or on the more practical modules, it might be familiarizing yourself with, say, a certain software. For me, I was a bit like worried because I have ADHD and I'm really quite a disorganized person. I thought I might not be able to cope with all the independent study. But I found it actually really freeing to be able to work on things in my own time when it suited me. So I have also found it manageable.
Thanks for that. And that ties into the next question quite nicely because it was about the main challenge or the biggest challenge that you had. Was that the situation? Was there anything else that you found challenging? And how do you deal with it?
Yeah, so for me, academic referencing is like my number one enemy. I'm absolutely terrible at it. But being on the masters has really helped me to figure out methods that help me. So some people reference perfectly straight away. Like every time they cite something, they will make sure they've got a proper reference. But for me, what helped is to just make a note of like the title of the work and page numbers and authors, dates, and then come back to it and fix it later. So that has been a bit of a learning curve for me because referencing and me are not friends, but I think I've improved quite a lot from my undergrad. So
Great to hear. And Carol, what about you? What's the biggest challenge? What has been the biggest challenge for you?
Yeah, I mean, for myself, it's coming straight from a BA. It was the kind of contrast, the jump towards meeting the deadlines at master's level. The assignments are significantly bigger, and there's a lot more of them. And readapting to that was quite a challenge to start off with. But with time as anything and more practice, you begin to adapt and learn from your mistakes of time management, perhaps in the past. So adapting to that time management throughout it was a challenge, but you get there in the end. However, it was a big step up for myself. I consider that one of the bigger challenges.
Perfect. Thank you. You already mentioned some of the modules that we offer in the masters. Was there any specific module that stood out for you or a topic that was particularly interesting while you were doing the masters, and why? Carol, do you want to start?
Yeah, so I mean, I think I'd say there's three kind of main modules that really stood out to me and I really enjoyed particularly. So I'd start with the first one being the subtitling module, so kind of audiovisual subtitling and translation module. I really, really liked it. I found it to be something that I didn't consider before as one of my interests, but as I studied, as I learned more about all the different programs and the industry of subtitling and effectively how it's one of the kind of the areas in translation that has the potential of being least affected by AI because human input in that industry is very, very much necessary. And learning all about this and all the programs and how it works and actually the process of subtitling itself was really, really quite fun for myself. And also the specialized translation module, particularly, I kind of learned a lot about the importance of specialization and another aspect of translation, which is also very interesting. And lastly, I'd say the critical skills for the professional translation for the translation profession. In that one, that module specifically made me reflect a lot about my own career, my own kind of future choices that I should make, that I shouldn't make maybe, and I should consider. And having that ability to reflect on that, I found very valuable and kind of would consider it to be one of the most interesting modules.
Great. Thanks for that overview. That's very useful. I'm sure that's very useful for everyone joining. Just to mention that the people who are joining us today, if you have any questions, feel free to use the chat for them and we'll pick them up as we go. Jay, anything to add in terms of modules?
Yeah, so I actually completely agree with Carol's choice of modules as well. I found those really impactful, especially the audio-visual translation module, because before I started the course, I hadn't really considered subtitling as being something that translators would do. But having had all this chance to practice it, I found it actually really enjoyable and quite relaxing as well. So I've started to consider it as a career as well. So yeah, that was probably my favorite module.
Okay,
And
interesting.
it's also worth mentioning, sorry to interrupt you, but that me and Jay are both doing the translation and technology pathway in our case. So that's...
Yes, thanks for mentioning that. And in relation to that, to the pathway that you're doing and your own personal expectations for the program, a question that we get regularly from potential applicants is how to balance different language combinations. Because as you, many of our applicants have multiple languages and language combinations. So, how have you managed or integrated this in the program, and have you been able to use your different language combinations? Jay, do you want to start?
Yeah, so I speak Spanish and Italian. I would say that for my assignments, I usually chose to work with Spanish because I felt more confident with it. But I had the option to choose Italian if I wanted to. So you can sort of pick and choose what you want to work with. And also, I found that in class, there were so many times when I was bringing up examples from both languages, and also, listening to other people's examples from their languages that I don't speak. So yeah, there's definitely chances to keep up with all of the languages you have.
Great, thanks. And Carol, you?
Yeah, so for myself, I also speak Spanish and Italian, and also Polish, as that's my native language. But the way I try to incorporate those is I effectively, for the most part, tried to do my assignments, each assignment in a different language combination, so that the kind of research element of it, I could incorporate, a bit of reading in Spanish, but reading in Italian, learning about some elements of the culture of the language that I'm talking about. So, for example, I think it's also worth mentioning actually that the assignments aren't all just essays, and actually there's a lot of assignments based, well, they're portfolio based or some practical elements to them. There's even a module that you would undertake about research skills in modern languages in general, which entailed doing an annotated bibliography, in my case and a literature review. And for the literature review, for example, I did one on the kind of anglicization of corporate Italian, and that allowed me to explore a lot of literature on Italian anglicization and actually doing readings in Italian, and the element of research carried out in that language as well for my own practice and for my knowledge. So there is that element of the ability to choose different languages per assignment. Even in my subtitling module, I did my assignment on a Polish TV series. So I could even incorporate Polish into my master's, which was quite a fun experience actually.
Great. Thanks for sharing that, and it's useful to see how you're combining your language combinations and the different types of assignments. That's very useful. So now let's talk a little bit about expectations and what actually happened when you joined. So what surprised you the most about the program? Something that you didn't expect when you arrived, or when you started in your case. Carol, do you want to start?
Yes, I mean, definitely the kind of different branches of translation that there are and how it can be applied. I think, how the only path really isn't translation. Just because you do a translation master's, you don't automatically have to become a freelance translator, for example, right at the end of it. Throughout the modules, you learn all about specialization and the profession and different areas of the industry. And that really made me reflect on my own career choices and the options that are available in kind of the future that I could go for. And that was something I really wasn't aware of, the different options, particularly. Markets.
Great. And Jay?
Yeah, so what surprised me was that my classmates came from really different backgrounds. So there were people who were like more mature students, and there were people from different countries and just different stages in life. So there were people who'd studied, people who'd worked and been in employment already. And it was really nice to have different perspectives. It wasn't all just people the same age as me, from the same place as me. So yeah, that was like a nice surprise.
That's very good to hear about the group dynamics. And especially with a program like this, it's useful to have those different takes, because then people bring their own experiences and their own knowledge already, which can actually become part of what they do when they become professionals in the language industry. So that's is useful to see. Is there anything else you would like to mention in terms of group dynamics or how it was actually like to be part of this international, multilingual, multicultural cohort? And is there anything you would like to add, Jay or Carol, that you would like to share?
Yeah, so we pretty quickly made a group chat so that if we had any questions or concerns, we could like reach out to our peers instead of going straight to a professor who's very busy. And I found that it was so interesting, like what people had to offer that I would have never known if they hadn't shared that input. So, for example, in class, I obviously heard Carol giving examples in Polish. Another classmate would give examples from Galician, and we had people speaking all different kinds of languages. And obviously, having studied Spanish and Italian, I'd never had that exposure to other languages before. So
Great, thanks. And Carol, anything to add?
Yeah, just about the kind of number of the group and it being a relatively small group, being quite personal, you having that ability to kind of meet everyone and know everyone that you're in the classroom with, getting to know them better. I think that's quite good for the classroom dynamic, and like Jay said, learning about everything that they know from their personal experiences or about the languages and everything like that. I think, yeah, very, very useful.
That's great to hear. And for us, that is really a success, because something that we want to replicate in the classroom is the fact that a language community is a relatively small community where networking is quite important and supporting each other, peer-to-peer feedback is quite essential as well. So we try to integrate that formally, but also informally in the program. So it's good to hear that. Now, we have some people joining who might be thinking about the program as such, and there are some questions that I'm going to revisit in a moment. But to start, is there anything that you wish you had known before you began the program? Carol?
Well, before starting the program, let me think about that. Jay, have you got a more straight away answer?
So I kind of have a jokey answer in that
I think Jay mentioned that they might drop because there was a connection issue, so they might be joining us later. But in the meantime, there was a question about Japanese in the chat. At the moment, we don't offer Japanese as one of the language combinations with English. So our program is offered with combinations between English and French, Spanish, German, Italian, or Mandarin Chinese. And those are the only languages that we offer at the moment. If you speak any of those languages plus Japanese, then you can have Japanese as your second language pair between Japanese and English, but we would need one of the main languages for now. We're looking into expanding into other languages, so keep an eye out for potential developments in the future. I was just answering one of the questions in the chat, Jay, but now that you're back, do you want to share your views? Any recommendations?
Yeah, sorry. I tried to open the chat and it just closed the whole app, which is really annoying, but I won't be doing that again. Yeah, so I just want to say that the one thing I wish I'd known is that we were changing from MHRA referencing system to Chicago, because in my undergrad, that's what I was used to, but I actually found it a lot easier to adapt, and Chicago is so much more commonly used. So in the end, it was kind of a positive thing. So.
Okay, yes, we use Chicago precisely because of that reason. It's much more common and easier to manage now as well. Carol, any recommendations?
Yeah, on kind of a macro scale, I think just how fast everything is actually going to move. Going into a full-time master's, you expect it to be intense, but you don't realize how fast it really moves, and how intense it is one thing, but also how fast it really goes. I'm in a moment now where I feel like I just started yesterday and I already have just my dissertation left, having submitted my assignment just earlier this week. So just the sheer thought that right now all I have to do until September is write my dissertation. It's exciting, but also a bit scary, given how fast it's moving. So yeah, just kind of looking back, knowing how fast it's going to move, it would be a good thing to know.
Yes, it's when we start the program, when we have the Welcome Week talk, it's always we try to encourage or to convey the idea that you really need to hit the ground running because it's a very intensive program in that sense, and there's a lot of new information that you need to engage with and consolidate so that you can move forward. But it feels like a year is very long, but in reality, it's a very short time. So yeah, thanks for sharing that. Now, a question that is difficult to ask because I'm one of the members of staff, but how is your relationship with the teaching staff? Do you feel supported? What can you share about that?
Well, for me, it's a question that's really easy to answer because it's an honest answer that I would give whether you would be here or not. I mean, it's really whatever query, whatever question I'd have, anything, any issues I'd have, I'm happy to go to any member of the staff within the department, honestly and wholeheartedly. Having spoken to all of the tutors in my different modules, and I've gone to all of the office hours and every opportunity that was available, and never did I have a bad experience. It was honestly every single time. Everyone was open to giving me advice and different ideas, whether it's to do with an assignment or an element of research or whatever it may be. So on my end, I never had a bad experience, and I'm really happy with how supportive the whole department is. Yeah.
Great to hear. Thank you very much for that. And Jay?
Yeah, so I've completely echo that. I think it being a small department means it's a lot more personal. So I've got to know a lot of the staff, and I've just really appreciated how they would always take time out to help me. Obviously, sometimes it can be a bit intimidating approaching like a member of staff, but I think in our department, everyone is so approachable and friendly, and I've never been made to feel like I was asking a stupid question or yeah, so I think the staff are all really lovely.
I'm very happy that you feel that way. Thank you very much. Thanks for sharing that. Now, a broader question about life at Warwick. So, what is it like to live and study in the region, in the West Midlands? And specifically, what is it like to study on campus at Warwick? Do you have any tips for any prospective students? Anything that you'd like to share, Jay?
So it's no secret that I'm really proud to be from Coventry. I've lived here for almost 25 years, which is quite a long time. And what I would say is that while the campus is really beautiful, very modern, I think people should maybe venture out and try and learn a bit more about the local history and the local culture, because Coventry has a really interesting history, and it's a really good place to get to know like what the UK culture is like, or in the West Midlands specifically. And we have lots of beautiful surrounding areas like Kenilworth, Leamington, Stoneleigh, places like that. So I would just encourage people, if you are coming to Coventry, venture out of campus, and you might be surprised at the things we have to offer.
And add on to that it's important to kind of highlight how Warwick is specifically a campus university, and therefore very different to city universities like, I don't know, Birmingham, for example, to think of the next closest one. So it's a very different experience to what you would have at city university. But I think, you have to kind of weigh your preferences and think about what kind of environment it is that you prefer. For some people like myself, I prefer something that's kind of more isolated, and it's Warwick in itself, the university is a small town. It's, you have everything there that you need, and if you don't want to, you don't have to leave. But like Jay says, it's recommendable that you do explore your surrounding areas. However, I do think it's important to kind of highlight that it is a very different experience to what you would have at City University, and whether it's better or worse for you, that's depending on what your preferences are, and something to consider.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Especially today, we have very nice weather, so it's a very nice place to be today. So now looking ahead, how do you feel the program is preparing you for what comes next, whether it is work or further study? How do you feel now looking back at what you have done and now facing the dissertation for the next couple of months? Carol, do you want to start?
Yeah, I mean, going back to, for example, the module we did on the professional skills or the translator profession, the critical skills for translator profession, I think that module specifically, but throughout all the modules, you get elements of ideas and different kind of pathways you could go down. And I think that specific kind of variety of modules that this program offers will give you a lot to think about and a lot to reflect on and a lot to consider in terms of what you're good at, what you're not as good at, what kind of suits your interests more. And in my case, for example, all the work I did on kind of in the specialized translation module about legal translation, and throughout the critical skills module, I kind of came to the conclusion that I'd be interested in going to the European Union and looking at in-house translated options there. And that's something I am considering starting October, right after I submit my dissertation. And that was really thanks to everything I kind of learned throughout the program. It wasn't something that I was considering really in September, but now throughout everything I've studied and learned and considered, it's an option that came up and an option that I'm considering. So I think it's kind of a piece of advice is, you can go into this master's without a clear and precise idea of what you want to do and still come out with an idea, because this master's will kind of help you clarify that in many ways, as it did for me.
Brilliant. Great to hear. And Jay?
Yeah, I completely agree. And one of the things I appreciate most about the course is how we're given like a really realistic and updated view of the industry. So I feel like we've been taught that machine translation is something that we have to consider. We probably are going to have to work with it, but not to be afraid of that and how it can be used as a tool for efficiency. So yeah, I think I've learned so much in every module about how the industry works, and what it looks like today in comparison to even a few years ago is very different. So
Perfect. I'm very happy to hear that, and good luck with all of your plans. Just to start wrapping up, if there's any other question, feel free to pop it in the chat now. And just to wrap up, do you have any final recommendation for anyone who's considering applying for the masters? Jay, do you want to start?
yeah, so I would recommend two things. I would say to start thinking about an area that you want to specialize in. So something that interests you or something that you're good at, maybe like a niche thing, because that's really going to help your employability. If you can say, I specialize in this area, instead of just being like a general translator, which is possible, but I would definitely recommend picking a specialism. And the second thing is, if you can, try to get some practice with CAT tools, because that's really going to help you as well. A lot of employers expect you to know how to use them. So I definitely recommend trying some out.
Great. And we cover many of those, or the most popular of those in the program as well. And we offer additional support and opportunities for you to engage with them both practically and critically. And Carol, anything else to add?
Yeah, I suppose just more broadly, really doing your research about the program itself, about the options it offers, about the modules and the different things you reflect on what you want to get out of this program and what you can expect to get out by doing your research is what you can find, how you can find that out. And yeah, if anyone's applying, then I wish you the best of luck. I would really recommend the course. I'm really happy with my decision. I'm sure many of my colleagues are too. Jay?
Yeah, definitely.
Perfect. So thank you very much for this conversation, for all the details and the experiences that you have shared. Just as a general information for anyone watching the recording or joining us here today, there's plenty of information on our website about the modules, the learning and teaching approach that we follow, the diversity of assessment that we include, also scholarship opportunities, entry requirements. All the information is there. If you have any additional question, feel free to email me. Thanks for joining us today, and thanks to Jay and Carl for sharing their experience. Have a good rest of the day. Bye.